Welcome. I am Asa Lanham, the Chief Executive Officer of Innovaro, and this is the second of our series of innovation for executives. In this, we're going to talk about one of the areas that we had identified as one of the parts of the framework for innovation, and that in particular is innovation governance. Governance is defined as the referring to the process of interaction and decision making among the actors that are involved in a collective problem, which is, it's a great statement. What it really means is that the people that own the problem work together collectively to make decisions and set up a process to manage the problem, to manage the opportunity. And most of us as executives are familiar with corporate governance. We're familiar with things like IT governance. You may have portfolio, management in your investment program. Governance of innovation is similar to those very same things, but it applies primarily to innovation itself. It's the process which determines the overall objectives of an innovation program. And let's talk about that a little more, what it should do. An innovation governance program should really set the strategy and the scope for the investment. And that really means, are we going to do internal investments in develop our own innovation capability? Are we going to outsource innovation? I will tell you, frankly, there are companies that hire other companies to innovate for them, to bring them the answers, to bring them the ideas, or to come in and facilitate to a point where they really, help them get all the ideas on their own. Right? It should look at the amount you're gonna expend on innovation. Is it a fixed dollar amount? Is it a percent of revenue? What's the measure of the funds that you want to put into this? All right, I will tell you that in a Booz Allen study of 2005 and 2006, corporate financials, they found very little correlation between R&D spending and measures of success with innovation. In fact, the quote out of that is, the correlation between innovation resources and competitive outcomes is weak, which means that some people are really good at it and some people are really bad at it. And it's not just a matter of money. Another one that it should look at is it should look at what's the structure for management of innovation. Now, there are two parts to innovation. There's the actual innovation projects. There's the innovation process. And many of us are familiar with the use of the term in today's environment of a chief innovation officer. And in some of those, they're responsible for actual innovation projects and new methods, new tools, new products, new markets, whatever it might be. And in others, they're responsible for the innovation process and helping the line organizations be successful with innovation. And you need to make a determination of how that's going to be done in terms of managing the process and managing and driving the outputs. The next thing we got to do is it got to be looking at the goals of the innovation program. And this, I'm not talking about specific goals. I'm talking about the strategic goals. Is an innovation program overall about developing brand new markets? Is it about the extension of existing markets? Is it new products into existing markets? Is it the next market over? What do you want the innovation program to be focused on in terms of the kinds of things it brings forward? The second one it should really look at is what's our position in this marketplace? Do we want to be a first mover? Do we want to be the first one to bring something to marketplace and deliver it? Or do we want to follow it fast? Every time something new happens, we're there and not behind. Or there's a third one that's used called a smart mover, which is, timing of the market, understanding the difference between the startup and real adoption phases and that, and moving in those. It also should help to set the balance between incremental versus disruptive innovation. What's the balance of the nature of the ideas we'd like to see move forward? And last but not least, or what are the portfolio objectives? Because remember, this is about innovation is about a number of different opportunities being explored. Are you looking for discrete single ideas? Are you looking for growth platforms that you can use for a number of years? Are you looking for disruptive growth, something that's entirely different? It's almost a new business beside the one you have today. All right, and then you've got to make a decision of whether or not what you really are looking for in your innovation programs are sprints versus marathons. Do you want something that's going to deliver in 60 days or 90 days, or are you looking for that 2 or 3 year program? I know a couple of large firms that have one group that works in the 3 to 5 year, and they have another group that works in over 20 years. That's their time horizon for what they're really working on from an innovation and a market standpoint. And last but not least, I think you should understand that the output of innovation or an innovation program may require a cultural change and or an organizational change. I can tell you from personal experience, having gone into an organization that went through dramatic changes in downsizing, poor financial results and everything else, the ethos that was in use at the time was keep your head down. If you stick it up, you'll get it shut off. Don't take risks. Don't take new things. And to get that was a fundamental cultural change to get people to be willing to step up and take a risk again for the first time. And it also mandated some organizational changes in the way we did things. Right? I want to talk a little bit about metrics because we talked about what you do, and Peter Drucker said you can't manage what you can't measure, and we're going to talk about metrics at two levels over the course of the series. We're going to talk about them at a governance level, and we're going to talk about them at a management level, and these are really the metrics for governance. And the metrics for governance, one of the things that you should look at is the process. How well are the processes that we want to put in place being embedded? Do we have the people trained? Are we getting them through events? Are we getting the kinds of things we need for people to be successful in implementing an innovation program? The other one that they really ought to take a look at is the results. And let's be honest, innovation is a numbers game. What's the number of ideas? How do they match up with what we want? What's the total that are in the pipeline? How many have been successful? What's the value? I can tell you one firm measures these very carefully at the management level and at the portfolio level, and they had roughly 1,900 ideas that had come out that had gone into the pipeline, of which 5 had been successful to date. Those 5 had some reasonable return on them, not great return, but what they were looking at was all the others that were trailing behind them, many of which were still in the pipeline. So the other thing to look at is how many ideas are being generated. If you go through this flurry right up front, and then it never happens again, then the question is what's happening with your program? And last but not least is where do they come from? Is one of your facilities really good at doing this versus others that aren't so good? Why is that? What's worth looking into to try to improve that? So there's a lot of numbers in the whole issue of innovation metrics. And that's really the end of our discussion about innovation governance. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to talking with you in our next one of the series. Goodbye.